I cooked dinner for 12 people, set the table lit. The candles adjusted the playlist 3 times so it wouldn't offend anyone. And as I stood there, apron-creased hands still smelling faintly of thyme and lemon, my mom took one bite, scrunched her face, and said, "Next time, just order something edible." My dad added without looking up, "Or maybe just stay out of the kitchen entirely." They laughed, and not one of them said anything. That's when I knew. This wasn't just one bad night. This was the moment I stopped setting the table for people who never saw me sitting at it. My name is Olivia Grant. I'm 28, live in Portland, and I work as an operations coordinator for a local arts nonprofit. On paper, my job is project management timelines, logistics coordination. Off paper, that skill set bleeds into every other part of my life, especially family. Last Thanksgiving, I cooked dinner for 12 people. Again. I didn't just cook. I planned. I cleaned. I double-checked who was vegetarian, who was keto this month, who swore off dairy but only in cheese form. I borrowed extra folding chairs picked up my uncle from the train station and built a playlist that somehow pleased 3 generations and didn't offend anyone. The house wasn't even mine. It was my parents'. But they don't like hosting alone anymore, which really just means I do all the work while they take the credit. I brought the groceries the day before, prepped everything in the garage fridge, and then spent 6 straight hours in the kitchen. No complaints, no martyr energy, just quiet focus. I do this kind of thing well, and they know it. When the final platter hit the table, rosemary roast chicken with lemon thyme just because my dad says turkey's too dry. I stood there for a moment. I looked at the candles, the neatly folded napkins, the curated chaos of a warm meal done right. It wasn't fancy, but it was thoughtful. A meal stitched together with time care and a little bit of me. They came to the table. They sat. They passed plates. For a second, I thought maybe, this time, someone would notice. Instead, my mom wrinkled her nose as if someone had brought in a wet dog. Then, she said loud enough for everyone to hear, "We should have just ordered takeout. At least it would have been edible." Someone chuckled. I don't remember who. Maybe my cousin. Maybe my dad. Maybe both. All I know is that my ears rang and my throat dried and not one person said anything in my defense. They just kept eating. I stood there behind my chair, hands still sticky from basting apron crumpled at my waist. And in that moment, something unhooked inside me. Not rage, not even hurt. Just a shift. A final click. Something inside me said, "Okay, then let them feed themselves next time." My mom didn't say it again. She didn't have to. The words were already cemented in the air, sharp and sour like vinegar left too long in a pan. My dad added without looking up, "Or maybe next time, just stay out of the kitchen entirely." He laughed as he said it, that casual, backhanded kind of laugh that people use when they're pretending it's a joke. But it wasn't a joke. Not really. Because he meant it. They all did. Every single person at that table, from my aunt with her second glass of Chardonnay to my brother who still expected me to iron his shirts when he visited, they heard it and they said nothing. I was still standing, still holding the serving spoon. I looked at them, 12 people eating food I made in a house I cleaned from a table I reset 3 times so it would feel more balanced. No one looked up. No one made eye contact. No one cared. I took a slow breath. Then I set the spoon down. I untied my apron, folded it in half, and draped it over the back of my chair like a surrender flag that wasn't quite surrender. And I said in a voice so calm it scared me, "Then you can pay for takeout next time." "Because I'm done." They laughed. Aunt Dana gave a little, "Oh, come on." My cousin Megan said, "You always take things so personally." Even my brother smirked. It's just mom being mom. But I wasn't taking it personally. I was taking it clearly. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't second-guessing whether I was overreacting. I just knew deeply that I had reached the end of my use. They didn't want me. Not really. They wanted the version of me who set alarms for the turkey, who remembered Uncle Jeff's allergy, who booked the group Airbnb and brought the table runners. They wanted the labor, not the person. I didn't throw a fit. I didn't storm out. I sat down and quietly ate a few bites of the salad I'd made with roasted squash and pomegranate seeds. No one noticed that I didn't refill anyone's drinks. No one asked why I didn't bring out dessert. They assumed I'd reset. Reboot. Re-engage. But that night, as they swirled wine and passed jokes over a meal they didn't lift a finger to create, I was already plotting my exit. Not from the room, from the role. After dinner, I cleared my own plate. Just mine. I left the other dishes where they were. Chicken bones, empty salad bowls, glasses smeared with fingerprints. I didn't reach for the sponge. I didn't hover by the sink like I always did, waiting for someone to notice to say, "Sit. Olivia, we've got this." Because they never did. And I was done pretending that someday they would. I slipped upstairs to the guest room. The door creaked same as it had since I was 17, but this time I didn't close it out of politeness. I closed it like punctuation, like a line being drawn. There was no drama, no slamming, just the soft click of a door finally serving its purpose. I pulled out my laptop, logged into my Airbnb account, canceled the reservation for the family Christmas cabin in Bend, the one I'd booked 6 months ago in my name on my card, with their "we'll settle up later" texts still sitting unread. Next, I opened the ski resort website, canceled the New Year's booking, gone. Then, I opened the shared Google Drive, the one titled Holiday Planner, Olivia. Inside, itineraries, menus, flight confirmations, group chat archives, budget tabs, and contact lists. I didn't even hesitate. Select all, delete, no backup, no draft folder, no explanations. I moved to the group chat, the one where everyone dropped their demands with quick question or, "Can you just real fast?" I didn't say goodbye. I just left. I didn't rage quit. I reclaimed. Back downstairs, they were still laughing, still drinking. Someone had put on music. My mom called up Livy dessert. I replied evenly, "There's tiramisu in the fridge. Help yourself." That was it. She didn't come up. She didn't ask why I sounded distant. She didn't notice that something massive had just shifted beneath the surface. Because they never notice. But this time, they'd feel it not in my voice, not in my expression, but in the work I didn't do, in the trip that didn't happen, in the spreadsheet that disappeared, in the silence I left behind. It didn't start with Thanksgiving. It started years ago, quietly, steadily, like a slow leak beneath the floorboards. You don't notice it at first. Then one day your footing's gone. I've always been good at managing things. That's what they said. Not with admiration, but expectation. I was the easy daughter, the one who didn't rebel, didn't demand, didn't crumble, the one who knew when to send thank you cards and which uncle didn't like cilantro. When I was 10, I set the table while Mom panicked in the kitchen. At 13, I packed for family trips, not just my own suitcase, but my brother's too. At 21, I coordinated Dad's retirement party, RSVPs, catering, music speech order. I was still in college. They called it helpful. They called me our little rock. But rocks don't get asked if they're tired, they just get stepped on. When my brother got married, I basically ran the wedding. The bride wanted a minimalist woodland theme. My mom wanted lace and crystals. I was the buffer, the planner, the glue. I built the schedule, organized the rehearsal dinner, managed the hotel block. On the day of the ceremony, someone handed me a walkie-talkie and said, "You're the only one who can keep this from falling apart." I smiled, like I always did, because it felt good to be needed until I realized being needed was the only reason they kept me close. No one ever asked how I was doing. They assumed I was fine because I made things fine for everyone else. Even my birthday was a logistics job. Last year, I got a text from my mom. "Can you book something for brunch on your birthday? You know what places you like." I did it, made the reservation, paid the deposit, sent the calendar invite. When we got there, she complained about the coffee. Dad handed me his phone and asked me to take a family photo and never passed it back so I could be in one. There was no malice. That's the part that hurts the most. They weren't cruel. They were careless. They built a whole rhythm around me being the default setting, the one who'd say yes, who'd follow up, who'd absorb the stress so no one else had to. But at some point, helpful becomes invisible, and invisible turns into disposable. And this time, after dinner, after the silence, after that sentence, at least it would have been edible, I finally understood. They didn't just take me for granted. They built their lives around it. And I was done being the scaffolding for people who never looked up to see what was holding them together. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up early. Not out of habit, but out of clarity. The house was quiet. Downstairs, I could hear the soft clatter of someone making coffee. Probably my dad still thinking I'd be the one to organize the leftovers into labeled containers. But I didn't go down. Instead, I opened my laptop and began. First, the Christmas trip. Canceled. Airbnb gone. Confirmation email deleted. Next, the New Year's ski weekend. It had taken me weeks to find a place that fit everyone's needs, walking distance to the lifts, pet-friendly, not too rustic for my aunt, not too modern for my mom. I clicked cancel reservation and watched the screen refresh like an exhale. Then came the Google Drive. Not just holiday stuff, the whole archive. Birthday spreadsheets, allergy lists, travel timelines, gift tracker docs. I'd built it all over the years because no one else would, or wanted to. One by one, I deleted them. Folders, subfolders, backups. Gone. Not archived. Erased. After that, the group chats. There was one for Christmas logistics, one for birthdays, one called Cousins Only, which wasn't actually just cousins. And of course the big one, Holiday Command Center, Olivia lead. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't make a dramatic exit. I just left, quietly. Like closing a door I never agreed to open in the first place. They wouldn't notice right away. That's the irony. The people who rely on you the most are often the last to realize when you're gone because they never imagined you could be. I logged into the family PayPal account, the one I created to collect deposits that always arrived late or not at all. There was still money in it. I refunded every dollar, every cent, including my own. No note, no explanation. And finally, I opened one last tab, a solo cabin 3 hours outside Portland for Christmas week. 1-bedroom wood stove, no Wi-Fi. I booked it under my name, my card, my rules. Then I closed my laptop, and for the first time in a decade of family planning, I didn't feel behind. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel worried someone would get left out. I didn't feel anything but light. There's a quiet power in deletion, not to punish, not to vanish, but to reset. They thought I was their event coordinator, but I was their scaffolding, and I had finally removed myself from their foundation, not to watch them collapse, but to see what would rise in my place. It took 2 days. 2 days of silence before the first crack in their system showed. My brother texted me. "Hey, weird question, did the Christmas cabin cancel itself? Site says no longer available." I didn't respond. An hour later, he followed up. "We already sent you our part for that, remember?" Which was funny because they hadn't. Not to me. They'd sent it to the family PayPal, the one I'd created, managed, and quietly funded when people forgot. So I logged in, found the transfer, refunded every cent. No message, just a receipt. The next day, my mom called. I let it ring. Then came the email. Subject line, "We need to talk about the holidays." No greeting, no warmth, just 5 paragraphs of veiled scolding. I know Thanksgiving didn't go the way you wanted, but canceling plans without notice is immature. People rely on you, Olivia. We expect more responsibility from you than this. There it was, the word they always reached for: maturity. Not support, not concern. Just a polished way of saying, serve us better. I didn't reply. Then came the confusion. A flurry of texts in the holiday group chat, the one I hadn't left yet. So, are we still doing the cabin? Wait, did someone order pies? Who's picking up Nana from the airport? Olivia, you there? I was. I just wasn't answering. Not because I was playing games, not to punish them. I was simply no longer performing. I'd built the system. They thought it ran itself. They thought I ran on duty, not on choice. But I'd made mine. They could coordinate their own chaos now. Figure out car rentals and menu plans and wine pairings. Learn what it means to carry the weight instead of handing it to the person who always said yes. That week, the chat exploded with 30 unread messages in 2 hours. Disagreements, reassignments, confusion. No one tagged me directly, but every message was asking, "Where is Olivia?" I didn't open the app again. Instead, I went to the grocery store, bought my favorite tea, fresh rosemary, a chocolate cake I wouldn't have to cut 12 slices from. I walked home slowly, my bag rustling, the city cool and quiet around me. Let them scramble. Let them realize. Silence is not absence. Sometimes it's the first time you've actually spoken. I woke up the next morning without an alarm. No texts about forgotten pies or last-minute RSVPs. No guilt tugging at my mind. Just my own breathing, steady and unhurried. I poured tea into my favorite mug, the one with a crack I fixed with gold paint because broken things can still be beautiful. I wrapped myself in a blanket by the window, watching the first snow dust the sidewalks. For years I thought busy meant worthy, but in that silence I found permission to just be. I baked banana bread not for anyone else, but because I wanted the scent of warmth in my kitchen. I smiled, knowing no one would walk in and tell me to just order something edible. That freedom tasted sweeter than any recipe. I laced up my boots and wandered through the park snow, crunching underfoot, my breath curling in the air. I didn't check my phone. I didn't worry about seating charts. I just existed. In that quiet, I realized I hadn't lost anything. I'd gained space to choose to feel, to heal. I emailed myself a promise. My worth isn't tied to what I do for others. I lit a candle not for ambiance, but as a beacon, I matter. Silence wasn't absence. It was the first time I heard my own voice whispering, "You're more than your labor." I still have the apron, soft from years of use, a faint cranberry stain near the pocket from a holiday long past. I washed it, folded it, tucked it in a drawer I rarely open. Not to wear again, but to remember the moment I chose myself. They didn't apologize. Not really. Weeks later, a few texts trickled in. "We missed you," or "wish you'd been there." But no one acknowledged what they'd taken, what they'd expected, what they'd ignored. And I wasn't waiting for their clarity to find mine. This Christmas, I sat at a table for one. A candle, a plate, a stew I made because I wanted to. Snow fell outside my cabin window. I read. I rested. I remembered who I am when I'm not being useful. I don't know how their holidays went. My brother texted once annoyed, saying they scrambled to book a last-minute Airbnb and argued over who'd pay. Mom emailed about tradition, but it felt more like a plea for me to return to my role. They're learning slowly what it means to carry their own weight. Some are managing, others are floundering. I don't need to watch to know they'll figure it out or they won't. Either way, it's not my load anymore. As for me, I'm imagining a future where my energy goes to what lights me up. Maybe I'll take a pottery class, travel solo, or just keep baking for myself. I'm not done with family forever, but I'm done being their default. If we rebuild, it'll be on new terms, where I'm seen, not just needed. To anyone who's been the planner, the fixer, the quiet glue, your value isn't in your availability. Your worth isn't in carrying what others won't. You don't have to burn yourself down to keep others warm. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is put the apron away and let them feel your absence. Not to punish, but to free yourself. Because silence isn't weakness, and walking away isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's the beginning of peace.
The laptop hit the water with a splash that silenced the party. My niece Emma stood at the edge of the pool, her designer dress sparkling under the party lights I paid for, wearing the same smirk her mother, my sister Kate, always had. "Sorry, Uncle Jack," she said, "not sorry at all. I wanted the MacBook Pro, not this cheap gaming thing." Cheap. The $5,000 custom-built gaming laptop I'd spent weeks configuring, knowing her passion for streaming now sank to the bottom of their heated pool. Around us, 50 teenage guests and their parents tried to hide their snickers. Some didn't bother hiding at all. Kate sipped her champagne, rolling her eyes. "Emma, honey, be nice. Your uncle, he tries his best with what he has." What I had. Interesting choice of words from someone whose entire lifestyle depended on my best. "It's fine," I said quietly, watching the last bubbles rise from the drowned laptop. "It's just money, right?" "Exactly." Emma brightened, already turning away. "Mom's getting me the right one tomorrow anyway. Put it on Uncle Jack's usual account, right, Mom?" Kate nodded absently, already deep in conversation with another parent about their upcoming Aspen trip, another expense that would mysteriously appear on my corporate card. I stood there, invisible despite funding this entire Sweet 16 extravaganza. $50,000 for one night, custom lighting, professional DJ, gourmet catering, designer decorations, not counting the pool house renovation Kate had insisted was essential for the party. My phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Unusual activity detected. $12,000 charge at Apple Store. They hadn't even waited for the laptop to hit the pool floor. I walked to the bar, top shelf, open bar, because Kate insisted her friends wouldn't accept anything less. The bartender knew me, gave me the good scotch without asking. I tipped him well earlier. Quite a party, he commented, watching Emma and her friends take selfies by the chocolate fountain. Quite a waste, I muttered, but pulled out my phone. 7 years of bankrolling their lifestyle flashed through my banking app. The mansion's mortgage, private school tuitions, luxury cars, endless shopping sprees, vacations, renovations. Every swipe of their cards linked to my accounts. But they didn't know about my other phone, the one containing proof of Kate's creative accounting at her investment firm. $2 million of client money carefully siphoned through offshore accounts. She thought she covered her tracks well. She hadn't. Uncle Jack. Emma's voice cut through my thoughts. We're out of ice, the good kind from that special place. I looked at her, really looked at her. 16, entitled, already mastering her mother's art of casual cruelty. Just like Kate at that age, before money and power turned her into something worse. I'll take care of it, I said, finishing my scotch. I would take care of everything. In my car, away from the pulsing music and fake laughter, I made a call. Not to the boutique ice company Kate insisted on using. No, this call was to someone who'd been waiting for it for months. Mr. Sullivan? This is Jack Morton. About the evidence we discussed, I'm ready to move forward. The SDC investigator's voice was calm, professional. Are you sure? Once we start. My niece just threw my gift in the pool, I said, watching through the windshield as Emma and her friends took videos of the drowned laptop. I've never been more sure. We'll need everything. All the documents, all the transactions. Check your email. I sent it all 5 minutes ago. Every transfer, every hidden account, every forged document. 7 years of evidence. He was quiet for a moment. This will destroy them. You understand that? I watched Kate raise her glass in another toast, probably adding another few thousand to my bill. Yes, I said. I understand perfectly. The call ended. I sat in my car, feeling the bass from the party speakers vibrate through the night air. In less than 12 hours, this mansion would be crawling with federal agents. The empire Kate built on stolen money and my generosity would crumble. But first, I had one more call to make. To my bank. This is Jack Morton. I need to freeze all associated accounts. Yes, all of them. Immediately. The party lights reflected off the pool water, making patterns on my windshield. Somewhere in those depths, a $5,000 laptop lay dead, its screen dark, just like their future was about to be. The party was still in full swing when the first domino fell. Declined? Kate's voice carried across the backyard. She was at the payment terminal, trying to tip the catering staff. That's impossible. Try it again. The caterer swiped her card again. Same result. Uncle Jack. Emma's shrill voice cut through the music. My Uber Eats isn't working. Your card keeps getting declined. I stayed in my spot by the pool, watching the chaos unfold like a perfectly choreographed dance. One by one, their financial lifelines began to snap. Kate's phone started buzzing, notifications from every linked account. Her face, flushed from champagne moments ago, turned pale. She excused herself from our conversation, heels clicking rapidly across the marble patio. Jack. Her voice was sharp, controlled panic bleeding through. There's something wrong with the accounts. All of them. Is there? I didn't look up from my phone. Fix it. Now. Not a request, a command. 7 years of commands. Like you fixed those client accounts at Morton Investment. I asked quietly. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? $2 million. Kate. Did you think I wouldn't notice? My name is on that firm too. She grabbed my arm, manicured nails digging in. Lower your voice, she hissed. This isn't the time or place. Actually, it's exactly the right time. I showed her my phone screen, the email confirmation from the SEC. They have everything. Every transaction, every hidden account, every lie. You didn't, she whispered, but she knew I had. I'm your sister. And that's my laptop at the bottom of your pool. The party continued around us, oblivious to the earthquake beginning beneath their feet. Emma and her friends were still taking selfies, their phones still working for now. capturing their last moments of privileged ignorance. Kate's husband, Tom, appeared, his usual smooth confidence cracking. The credit cards aren't working. Any of them. Even the emergency ones. Jack's throwing a tantrum, Kate said, trying to sound dismissive. He'll fix it. He always does. Not this time. I stood up. The SEC opens at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I wonder who they'll arrest first. You for the embezzlement or Tom for helping launder the money. Tom's face went from confused to terrified in seconds. Kate? What's he talking about? He's lying, she snapped. Jack, stop this. Whatever game you're playing. Game? I laughed, loud enough to draw stares. Like the game where you stole from clients? Or the one where you made me fund your lifestyle while mocking me behind my back? Mom? Emma appeared, clutching her dead phone. What's happening? Kate's mask cracked. Nothing, sweetie. Your uncle's just being difficult. I finished? No, Emma, I'm being honest. For the first time in 7 years. Security guards appeared, the expensive kind Kate insisted on hiring for the party. Ma'am, the payment for our services was declined. This is ridiculous, Kate sputtered. We have money. Had, I corrected, past tense. The party was dissolving now. Parents were checking their phones, discovering their connections to Morton Investment, realizing what was happening. Whispers spread like wildfire. You're destroying everything, Kate whispered furiously. No, you did that yourself. I'm just turning on the lights. Emma stood there, her perfect sweet 16 crumbling around her. Mom, why are people leaving? But Kate was already rushing inside, probably trying to access accounts, move money, hide evidence. Too late. Everything was locked down, documented, reported. Tom followed her, ashen-faced, leaving Emma alone with me. Uncle Jack. Her voice was small now, the arrogance gone. What's going on? I looked at her, really looked at her. 16 spoiled, but maybe not completely lost. Remember that laptop? I pointed to the pool. The one you threw away because it wasn't good enough? That's what your mother's been doing with people's lives. Their savings, their futures, tossing them away because nothing was ever good enough. She stared at the pool, then at the rapidly emptying party. But we have money, she stammered. No, Emma, I had money. Your mother had schemes. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. A text from the SEC investigator, teams in position, moving at first light. I stood up. The party was over in more ways than one. Wait, Emma called as I walked away. Where are you going? Home. And Emma, that laptop you threw away? It was worth more than this house will be by morning. I left her there, standing by the pool where it all ended, surrounded by the wreckage of her mother's lies and her own entitlement. Inside, I could hear Kate's hysterical voice echoing through the marble halls. Call the lawyers. Call anyone. Fix this. But some things can't be fixed. Some things shouldn't be. By dawn, their world had shattered completely. I watched the morning news from my home office, sipping coffee as the headlines scrolled. Morton Investment SCANDAL. High Society Family ACUSD of $2 million FRAD. Helicopter shots show federal agents swarming the mansion, their vehicles reflecting the sunrise. My phone had 148 missed calls. Kate, Tom, their lawyers, their friends, even Emma. I listened to only one voicemail, Kate's last attempt at manipulation. You've ruined us, Jack. Your own family. I hope you're happy now, you spiteful, jealous. I deleted it mid-sentence. The doorbell rang. Through my security camera, I saw Emma still wearing her party dress from last night, mascara streaked down her face. Against my better judgment, I let her in. They took Mom, she said, collapsing onto my couch. In handcuffs, in front of everyone. Dad, too. Actions have consequences, I replied, watching her carefully. But where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? The entitled princess was gone, replaced by a scared teenager. Your grandparents in Ohio, I said. I've already called them. They'll take you in while this plays out. Ohio? She looked horrified. But my friends, my school, are gone. Just like that laptop in the pool. She flinched. I'm sorry about the laptop. I was just being exactly who your mother raised you to be, I finished. But here's the thing, Emma. You're 16. You can still choose who you want to become. Her phone, now connected to her grandmother's basic plan, buzzed continuously. Social media was exploding with the scandal. Former friends were distancing themselves. Her perfect world was disintegrating in real time. Why did she do it? Emma whispered. We had everything. No, I corrected. You had other people's everything. There's a difference. I showed her the documents, simplified versions a teenager could understand. How Kate had stolen from clients, how she used my name and money to cover her tracks, how she built their luxury lifestyle on a foundation of fraud. All those vacations, Emma realized, the cars, the clothes, everything was stolen. I nodded. Either from investors or from me. She was quiet for a long moment, processing. Will they go to jail? Yes. More silence. Then, what about me? I handed her a plane ticket to Ohio. You get a second chance. Don't waste it. After she left, I walked through my quiet house, feeling the weight of 7 years lifting. My phone buzzed. The SEC investigator. Kate's asking to make a deal. Claims you were involved. I smiled. Let her try. I have 7 years of evidence proving otherwise. By evening, the story had exploded. Kate and Tom in custody, their assets frozen, their empire exposed as a house of cards. Former friends gave interviews, claiming they always suspected something wasn't right. The same people who'd laughed at the party now expressed shock and outrage. I received one final text from Kate, probably sent from a borrowed phone. I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed your family. My response was simple. No, Kate. I just stopped letting family destroy me. 3 months later, I received a letter from Ohio. Emma, writing to tell me she'd gotten a part-time job, was doing well in her new school, learning what it meant to earn things instead of taking them. At the bottom, she'd written, I found a laptop like the one I threw in the pool. Been saving up for it. This time, I'll appreciate it. I smiled but didn't respond. Some lessons are best learned in silence. Kate and Tom took plea deals. The mansion was seized, their assets liquidated to repay investors. My name was cleared, my reputation intact. The only thing I lost was the weight of supporting their lies. Sometimes at night, I think about that laptop sinking in the pool. How that moment of casual cruelty finally opened my eyes. How sometimes the most expensive things we own are the illusions we choose to believe. But I don't regret a thing, because sometimes the best investment you can make is in your own freedom. And that's something no one can throw away. The GPS announced, you have arrived, as we pulled up to my mother-in-law Diana's sprawling colonial home. My 3 children, exhausted from the 8-hour drive, perked up at the sight of the holiday decorations covering the front lawn. Even after 6 years, Diana still went overboard trying to create the perfect family image, at least for the relatives she considered worthy. Look, Mom, Sophie, my youngest, pressed her face against the window. Grandma got a bounce house. I exchanged a glance with my husband, Mark, in the rearview mirror. We hadn't heard anything about a bounce house. Then again, Diana hadn't exactly been forthcoming with the party details when she called 2 weeks ago, insisting we make the long drive for Thanksgiving this year. Remember what we talked about, I said softly to the kids as we unloaded the car. If Grandma says anything that makes you uncomfortable, we tell you or Dad right away, 12-year-old Marcus finished. He'd grown more protective of his younger sisters since last Christmas, when Diana had conspicuously given all the blood grandchildren special gifts, leaving my 3 adopted children with dollar store coloring books. Mark squeezed my hand as we approached the front door. Mom promised she'd behave this time, Emily. She knows this is her last chance. I wanted to believe him. We'd adopted our children. Marcus, 10-year-old Lily, and 6-year-old Sophie, when they were babies. Diana had seemed accepting at first, even attending the adoption ceremonies. But over the years, her true feelings had begun to seep out in subtle jabs and accidental oversights that had become increasingly obvious. The door swung open before we could knock. Diana stood there in a perfectly pressed autumn-themed dress, her signature pearl necklace gleaming. Mark, darling. She embraced her son, then gave me a cool nod. Emily, and the children. Her pause before acknowledging my kids was slight but deliberate. The house was packed when we entered. Diana's other children had already arrived with their families, Mark's sister Rebecca with her 3 natural children, as Diana loved to emphasize, and his brother Tom with his newborn son. The smell of turkey and pumpkin pie filled the air, mixing with the sound of children playing and adults chatting. The kids' table is in the sunroom, Diana announced, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the house. And adults are in the dining room. We followed her through the house, my children clutching the handmade place cards they'd spent hours creating. That's when I noticed something off. The dining room table, traditionally set for all family members over 10, was already full. Rebecca's older children sat proudly among the adults, while unfamiliar faces occupied what should have been our seats. Mom, Mark frowned, where are we supposed to sit? Diana busied herself adjusting a centerpiece. Oh, I hope you don't mind, but I invited the Petersons. You remember them from church? Their grandchildren are visiting, and I thought it would be nice to have some traditional families join us. My heart sank as I watched Marcus's face fall. At 12, he should have been at the adult table like Rebecca's son Tyler. Instead, Diana had relegated all my children to the rickety card table in the sunroom, along with the toddlers. Traditional families? I kept my voice level, aware of the curious looks from other guests. What exactly does that mean, Diana? She turned, her smile sharp as cut glass. Well, dear, I just thought it would be more comfortable for everyone this way. After all, the Petersons' grandchildren are their real grandchildren. The room went silent. Even Rebecca, who usually backed her mother without question, looked uncomfortable. Mom, Mark's voice cracked with anger. You can't. It's fine, I interrupted, though it was anything but fine. I could see Sophie's lower lip trembling and Lily's fingers crumpling her carefully made place card. Kids, why did we go check out that bounce house? As soon as they were out of earshot, I turned back to Diana. 6 years, I said quietly. For 6 years, I've watched you chip away at my children's sense of belonging. Every holiday, every family gathering, you find new ways to remind them they're not real family to you. Diana's perfect hostess mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the contempt beneath. I'm simply being honest, Emily. Blood is blood. You can't expect me to pretend. Like you've been pretending all these years. I reached for my purse, fingers closing around the envelope I've been carrying for months, waiting for the right moment. About your own family's blood. Diana's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I pulled out the envelope. Because when Mark decided to do one of those ancestry DNA tests last spring, we found some very interesting connections. Would you like me to share them with everyone here? The perfectly arranged Thanksgiving decorations suddenly seemed to mock us, all those happy family photos on the walls. The family is forever sign above the fireplace, the elaborate place cards marking who Diana deemed worthy of her table. Emily, she hissed, this is hardly the time. You're right, I cut her off. It's not the time. It hasn't been the time for 6 years, as you've systematically made my children feel like outsiders. But since you're so concerned about real family today. I looked around the room at the gathered relatives, at the Petersons sitting awkwardly in our seats, at Mark's siblings who had watched their mother's behavior for years without objection. The truth in this envelope was about to change everything. And as I heard my children's laughter floating in from outside, my beautiful, strong, resilient children who deserved so much better, I knew it was finally time. Diana's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. Whatever you think you found. What I found, I said firmly, is that Mark's DNA test showed no genetic match to Tom or Rebecca. None. The collective gasp in the room was almost theatrical. Rebecca's wine glass froze halfway to her lips, while Tom stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. That's impossible. Diana's voice had risen an octave. There must be some mistake. I thought so too. I continued pulling out the test results. So we did more research. Would you like to tell everyone about William Peterson, Diana? The man whose grandchildren are sitting in our seats right now. The color drained from Diana's face as she stared at the Petersons, the lovely older couple she'd invited to fill out the table. Mr. Peterson looked particularly uncomfortable, his eyes fixed on his plate. I don't. Diana started, but I wasn't finished. William Peterson was your first husband, wasn't he? The man you were married to when Mark was born. His birth certificate listed Peterson as his father, though you had it changed when you married John 6 months later. Mark's stepfather, the man he called Dad his whole life, had passed away 3 years ago. He'd never known the truth either. Tom and Rebecca came along after you married John, I continued, making them Mark's half-siblings, which means those DNA results make perfect sense. Rebecca stood up, her chair scraping back. Mom, is this true? Diana's perfect hostess facade cracked completely. It was complicated, she whispered. He wasn't ready to be a father. When I met John, he promised to give us a real family, a respectable name. So you erased William Peterson from Mark's life, I said, changed his birth certificate, changed his name, and pretended it never happened. Just like you've spent 6 years trying to erase my children from this family. The irony was almost too perfect. Diana, who'd spent years preaching about blood ties and real family, had built her entire family image on a carefully constructed lie. Mark? Diana turned to her son, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. Darling, I was young. I was trying to protect you. Like you're protecting my children? Mark's voice was steady but cold. By making them eat at a card table while their cousins sit with the adults. By inviting strangers to take their places. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. Diana, perhaps we should go. No, I said firmly. Please stay. After all, you're Mark's biological grandfather. And since Diana is so concerned about blood ties, I'm sure she'll want you to know your great-grandchildren. My children, whom she's been treating as outsiders for years. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the distant sound of children playing outside. The perfectly arranged Thanksgiving table now seemed like a stage set for a drama no one had expected to perform. Tom was the first to speak. All these years, Mom, all your talk about family legacy and blood ties was a lie, Rebecca finished, her voice barely a whisper. Just like the way you've been treating Marcus, Lily, and Sophie. Diana sank into her chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. I just wanted a perfect family, she whispered. When William left, everyone talked. Small towns, you know how they are. John offered me respectability, a chance to start over. And that's exactly what you denied my children, I said softly. The chance to be accepted without questions about their origins. The chance to be loved unconditionally. Mark walked to the window, watching our children play outside with their cousins, all of them laughing, unbothered by the adults' complicated definitions of family. You know what's ironic, Mom, he said, still watching the children. Those kids out there, they don't care about DNA tests or birth certificates. They just love each other. Maybe it's time we learn from them. Diana dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed napkin. I never meant. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I finished for her, but you did. Every time you separated my children from their cousins, every time you made them feel less than, every time you used the word real like it was a weapon. The turkey was getting cold, the perfect Thanksgiving dinner forgotten in the wake of long-buried truths. But something was shifting in the room, something that felt like the beginning of healing. I'd like to hear about William, Mark said suddenly, turning to Mr. Peterson. If you're willing to tell me. And as his biological grandfather began to speak, I slipped outside to check on my children. It was time to rearrange some seating assignments. I found my children by the bounce house, their earlier disappointment temporarily forgotten in the joy of play. Marcus was helping Sophie climb up while Lily took turns jumping with her cousins. No distinction between real and adopted in their innocent fun. Mom, Sophie waved, her face flushed with excitement. Are we having dinner soon? Yes, sweetheart, I smiled. And there are going to be some changes to the seating arrangements. When we returned inside, the dining room had transformed. The adults had pushed together several tables, creating one long surface that stretched from the formal dining room into the sunroom. Gone was the separation between adult and children's tables, between real and adopted family members. Diana stood awkwardly by her chair, watching as Mark and Mr. Peterson worked together to rearrange place settings. Her perfect Thanksgiving layout was in shambles, but something more authentic was taking its place. I've been thinking, she said softly as I approached, about what you said, about unconditional love. She twisted her pearl necklace, a nervous habit I'd never seen before. When William left, I thought if I could just create the perfect family image, no one would ever hurt us again. I didn't realize I'd become the one doing the hurting. Marcus walked past us, carrying his handmade place card. Diana reached out, tentatively touching his arm. Would you like to sit next to me, Marcus? My son looked at me, then at his grandmother. Will you tell me about when my dad was my age? Diana's eyes welled up. I'd like that very much. The Thanksgiving dinner that followed was nothing like Diana's carefully planned production. The turkey was lukewarm. The seating arrangement was chaotic, and children's laughter mixed freely with adult conversation. Mr. Peterson shared stories about young Mark that had us all alternating between laughter and tears. Tom and Rebecca's children peppered their newly discovered grandfather with questions, while my children listened intently to family history that was now, undeniably, their own. "You know," Diana said during dessert, watching Sophie share her pumpkin pie with Rebecca's youngest, "I always thought family was something you had to control, to perfect." But looking at them, she gestured to the mixed group of children, impossible to distinguish between adopted and biological. "They already know what took me 60 years to learn." "And what's that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "That love doesn't need verification. It just needs room to grow." After dinner, as the children returned to the bounce house and the adults settled into comfortable conversations, Diana disappeared upstairs. She returned carrying a dusty photo album I'd never seen before. "These are from before," she said, placing it on the table. "When Mark was little, when William was still." She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "I think it's time we had all our family history out in the open. No more hiding, no more pretending." The photos showed a younger Diana with a man who had Mark's smile. There were birthday parties, beach trips, moments of ordinary family life that had been buried beneath years of reinvention. "Next Thanksgiving," Diana said suddenly, "I'd like to do things differently." She looked around at her expanded family, biological, adopted, step, and chosen. "Maybe we could start new traditions, ones that celebrate how we came together, rather than where we came from." Mark squeezed her hand. "I'd like that, Mom." Later that night, as we packed up the car for the long drive home, Diana pulled me aside. "Emily," she said, holding out a small box, "I want you to have these." Inside were her pearl earrings, the ones she always said would go to her first granddaughter. "For Sophie," she said, "when she's older." "And these?" She handed me another box containing a matching bracelet. "For Lily." As we drove away, my children already dozing in the back seat, Mark reached for my hand. "You know what's funny?" he said. "Mom spent all those years trying to hide the truth about our family, but revealing it finally made us feel like a real family." I looked in the rearview mirror at our sleeping children, our perfect, beautiful, chosen children. "Maybe that's because real family isn't about who shares your blood," I said. "It's about who shares your heart." The truth had shattered Diana's carefully constructed image of a perfect family, but from those pieces, something more beautiful had emerged. A family bound not by blood or birth certificates, but by love, acceptance, and the courage to embrace all the complicated, messy parts of our shared story. And next Thanksgiving, well, I hear Diana's already planning to get a bigger bounce house. One with room for everyone. I should have known better than to accept the Thanksgiving invitation from my in-laws. 2 years of marriage to James Anderson hadn't changed his family's opinion of me, the lowly secretary who had somehow trapped their golden boy. The Anderson family mansion loomed before us, its Victorian architecture a testament to old money and older prejudices. James squeezed my hand as we walked up the marble steps. "It'll be different this time, Kate," Mom promised to behave. I smoothed down my Chanel dress, the one thing I'd allowed myself to splurge on from my secretary's salary, and forced a smile. If only they knew. The door swung open to reveal Margaret Anderson, my mother-in-law, dressed in what she probably thought was casual attire, a designer sweater set adorned with her signature pearls. "James, darling," she exclaimed, embracing her son while barely acknowledging my existence. The house was already buzzing with activity. James's sister Elizabeth and her investment banker husband held court in the living room, while his brother Michael discussed stock portfolios with their father, Richard. The children were somewhere upstairs with their nanny, another clear distinction between the help and the family. "Catherine," Margaret's voice cut through my observations, "be a dear and help Maria in the kitchen. You must feel right at home there, given your professional background." James started to protest, but I touched his arm. "It's fine," I whispered. "Let them think what they wanted, for now." The kitchen was chaos, with Maria, their longtime housekeeper, trying to manage multiple dishes at once. I genuinely enjoyed helping her, remembering my own days of working 3 jobs to put myself through business school. Maria shot me a sympathetic look as I rolled up my sleeves. "Mrs. Kate," she whispered, "you shouldn't be here. Your family." I winked at her. "Don't worry about me, Maria. Things have a way of working themselves out. An hour later, Margaret swept into the kitchen. We're ready to eat. Catherine, we've arranged special seating this year. The dining room was a picture of old-world elegance with its crystal chandelier and antique mahogany table. But Margaret wasn't leading me there. Instead, she gestured to a small plastic table set up in the corner, complete with cartoon character plates and tiny chairs. Since you're more comfortable with a simpler setting, we thought you'd prefer to sit with the children. Plus, the adults will be discussing business matters that might be over your head, dear. The room fell silent. James stood up, his face reddening. Mother, that's enough. But before he could continue, my phone rang. The familiar ringtone made me smile. I've been waiting for this call. Excuse me, I said, maintaining my composure. I need to take this. It's about a rather important acquisition. Margaret rolled her eyes. Really, Catherine, taking work calls at Thanksgiving? I know secretary work never ends, but surely your filing can wait. I put the phone on speaker. Go ahead, Jennifer. Madam President, I apologize for interrupting your holiday, but the board needs your immediate approval. The Anderson Manufacturing acquisition is ready to proceed. As CEO of Sterling Industries, your signature is required to finalize the purchase. The crystal glass in Richard Anderson's hand crashed to the floor. Margaret's face drained of color as she gripped the back of a chair for support. The papers are being sent to your tablet now, Jennifer continued. Once signed, Sterling Industries will officially own 51% of Anderson Manufacturing. Oh, and the press release about your Forbes cover story is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Shall I delay it, given the holiday? I looked around the room at the shocked faces of my in-laws. Elizabeth had stopped mid-sip of her wine, the glass frozen halfway to her mouth. Michael's carefully crafted mask of superiority had cracked wide open. And Richard, my father-in-law, looked like he'd seen a ghost. No need to delay anything, Jennifer. In fact, please inform the board I'll be making some immediate changes to the company structure. I turned to face my father-in-law, starting with the CEO position. I believe retirement might be calling, wouldn't you say, Richard? James moved to stand beside me, wrapping an arm around my waist. The pride in his eyes made all the months of hiding worth it. He kept my secret, understanding why I needed to maintain the facade while the acquisition was in progress. I don't understand, Margaret stammered. You're just a secretary. No, Margaret, I was a secretary years ago, while putting myself through business school at night. Then I built Sterling Industries from the ground up. But when I met James at that charity gala, I chose to keep that quiet. I wanted to know if your son could love me for me, not my net worth. I walked over to the children's table and picked up one of the cartoon plates. I think I'll pass on the special seating arrangement, but I would love to discuss business over dinner. After all, I am now your boss. The silence in the room was deafening. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Jennifer about the acquisition. Looking at the Anderson family's stunned faces, I realized this Thanksgiving would indeed be one for the records. And we hadn't even served the turkey yet. The next 30 minutes were a study in barely contained chaos. Margaret fled to the kitchen, claiming she needed to check on the turkey, though the rhythmic clinking of ice against crystal suggested she was fixing herself a much-needed drink. Richard had aged 10 years in 10 minutes, slumped in his chair, staring at his phone as Anderson Manufacturing's stock price began to shift with the first whispers of the acquisition. Elizabeth, ever the social climber, executed the fastest attitude adjustment I ever witnessed. Kate, darling, she cooed, patting the seat next to her. You simply must tell us all about Sterling Industries. To think we've had such a powerful businesswoman in the family all this time. Yes, Michael chimed in, straightening his tie. I actually have some excellent investment opportunities I'd love to discuss. Not now, Michael, James cut in, his voice firm. This is still Thanksgiving dinner, not a board meeting. Maria appeared with the turkey, followed by a visibly rattled Margaret. My mother-in-law's hands trembled as she took her seat, her perfect French manicure clicking against her water glass. Well, Margaret attempted to regain control of her perfectly planned dinner. Shall we say grace? Actually, I said, pulling out my tablet, before we begin, I should finish signing these papers. Richard, you'll want to witness this. I turned to Maria. Would you mind waiting just a moment? Maria smiled. She'd known my secret for months, having recognized me from a business magazine left in the study. Of course, Mrs. Kate. I signed the digital documents with a flourish, watching Richard's face grow paler with each electronic signature. There. Now Anderson Manufacturing is officially part of Sterling Industries' portfolio. And yes, Margaret, let's say grace. I have much to be thankful for. The prayer was a tense affair, with Margaret's voice cracking on "Bless this family gathering." As we began passing dishes, Elizabeth launched her charm offensive. "Kate, that Channel dress is exquisite. I have the same one in blue. We simply must go shopping together at Bergdorf's." "Funny," I replied, serving myself some cranberry sauce. "I remember you telling me last that I shouldn't waste money on designer clothes on a secretary's salary, and I should stick to department store clearance racks." Elizabeth choked on her wine. "Speaking of salaries," Michael leaned forward, "about those investment opportunities." "Michael," I cut him off gently, "Sterling Industries has a strict policy against nepotism in business dealings. But I'm sure you understand that, given how often you've lectured me about proper business protocols at family gatherings." James squeezed my knee under the table, fighting back a smile. "I just don't understand," Margaret finally burst out, her composure cracking. "Why the deception? Why let us believe? Why work as a secretary in our company?" "I never worked as a secretary in your company, Margaret," I corrected her. "That was another assumption you made. I simply didn't correct you when you jumped to conclusions about my career after meeting James, and then it became interesting to see how you treat someone you consider beneath you." Richard cleared his throat. "About the company, we'll discuss the transition tomorrow at 9 a.m., I said firmly. "Your office, though I suppose it's my office now." The rest of dinner proceeded in awkward bursts of conversation, punctuated by the children's occasional laughter from their table, the one that had been meant for me. Margaret kept glancing between me and her precious family photographs on the wall, perhaps realizing she'd need to update them to include the daughter-in-law she tried so hard to exclude. As Maria brought out dessert, my phone buzzed again. "Excuse me," I said, checking the message. "Ah, perfect timing. The press release just went live. I expect your phones will start ringing any minute now." On cue, Richard's phone lit up. Then Michael's. Then Elizabeth's. "You'll want to ignore those for now," I advised. "The official statement will be made tomorrow morning, though I suggest you all update your LinkedIn profiles. Former executives at Anderson Manufacturing has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Margaret dropped her fork with a clatter. "Former?" "Well, of course," I replied, taking a bite of pumpkin pie. "You don't think I'd keep the same management team that thought it was appropriate to seat their CEO at the children's table, do you?" The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Richard's heavy breathing and the distant laughter of the children, the only ones truly enjoying their Thanksgiving dinner. "James," Margaret turned to her son, pleading, "did you know about this?" James set down his napkin. "I knew exactly who I was marrying, Mom. I fell in love with Kate's brilliance, her determination, and her kindness, despite how this family treated her. I've watched her bite her tongue through every condescending comment, every backhanded compliment, every deliberate slight. And I've never been prouder than I am right now." I reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. This was why I'd fallen in love with him. Not his family name, but his heart. "Well," Elizabeth stood suddenly. "This has been enlightening. We should probably get the children." "Sit down, Elizabeth," I said calmly. "Dessert isn't finished, and we haven't even discussed plans yet. After all, we're family." The look of horror on their faces almost made the past 2 years of subtle humiliation worth it. Almost. The weeks following Thanksgiving brought changes that sent shockwaves through the Anderson family's carefully ordered world. Richard cleared out his office without fanfare, his prized golf trophies and family photos packed away in bankers' boxes. Elizabeth's husband suddenly found his investment firm losing clients, though unsure it was just a coincidence that many were Sterling Industries partners. Michael's investment opportunities dried up once word spread about the acquisition. But it was Margaret who struggled most with the new reality. Her carefully curated social circle buzzed with the news. The daughter-in-law she'd so publicly snubbed was now featured in Forbes magazine. Her company's success splashed across financial headlines. 2 weeks before, I received an unexpected visit at my new office, formerly Richard's sanctuary of mahogany and leather. "Catherine." Margaret stood in the doorway, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "Do you have a moment?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Of course, Margaret. Please sit." She perched on the edge of the seat, looking oddly vulnerable without her usual armor of social superiority. "The party," she began and faltered. "I assume you'll be hosting this year?" "Actually, I thought you should keep that tradition," I replied, watching her eyes widen in surprise. "Some things shouldn't change just because of business matters." "But," she twisted her pearls nervously, "after everything." "Margaret," I leaned forward, "I didn't buy Anderson Manufacturing for revenge. I bought it because it was a smart business decision. The company needed new leadership and fresh capital. The fact that it belonged to my in-laws was, let's call it, an interesting coincidence." "The children's table," she blurted out. "I was horrible to you." "Yes, you were," I agreed calmly. "For 2 years, you treated me like an intruder, a gold digger, someone beneath you. But here's what you never understood. Success isn't about which table you sit at. It's about what you bring to it." Tears welled in her perfectly made-up eyes. "I've lost everything. My standing in the community, my friends." "No, Margaret, you've lost the illusion of power. There's a difference." I handed her a tissue. "But you haven't lost your family, not if you don't want to." She dabbed at her eyes carefully. "How can you even suggest that after how we treated you?" "Because unlike you, I don't measure people's worth by their bank accounts or social status." I pulled out a folder. "Here's my gift to you, Early." Inside was a contract naming her the head of the Anderson Family Foundation, a new charitable organization I'd established using a portion of the acquisition funds. "You always had a talent for social organizing," I explained. "Now you can use it to actually help people instead of just impressing them." Margaret stared at the papers, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't deserve this. Consider it a second chance, something everyone deserves, even mothers-in-law who serve their CEOs on cartoon plates." A small laugh escaped her, possibly her first genuine one in weeks. As she left my office, she paused at the door. "The party? Will you and James come?" "Of course. But this time, I'll sit at the adult table." The party was different that year. Gone were the obvious displays of wealth and status seeking. Elizabeth helped serve drinks instead of ordering servers around. Michael actually spoke to people instead of networking. And Margaret, to everyone's shock, announced the Foundation's first initiative, a scholarship program for underprivileged students pursuing business degrees. As I watched my mother-in-law actually smile, genuinely smile. While describing the scholarship, James wrapped his arm around me. "You know," he whispered, "you could have told them the truth at any time. You could have crushed them completely." "True," I agreed, sipping my champagne. "But sometimes the best revenge is showing people a better way to live." Later that evening, I found Maria in the kitchen, supervising the cleanup. "Mrs. Kate," she smiled, "look what I saved." She pulled out one of the cartoon plates from Thanksgiving. "A reminder," I laughed, "of why you should never judge someone by where they sit." "No," Maria corrected me, her wise eyes twinkling. "A reminder that sometimes the kids' table has the best view of everyone's true colors." I took the plate home and hung it in my office, a colorful reminder among the awards and business degrees, because success isn't just about climbing to the top. It's about remembering every step that got you there, even the ones that came with cartoon characters and plastic chairs. And Margaret, she still hosts Thanksgiving, but now there's only one table, big enough for everyone, regardless of their title or tax bracket, though I did notice she's switched to paper plates for everyone. "Something about starting fresh," she says. After all, sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest things, like where you sit at dinner, and who you become when life serves you a different kind of plate.